we were talking about closing off versus opening up, and we also touched on kind of cynicism around love. I think a lot of people in the culture at large, there is this. I think it's precisely because this attitude of love is so powerful that there's this kind of cultural meme of reflexively kind of shutting down conversation about it, because it calls a lot on us really to say we should all be opening up in this way, right? Because most of us have some wound or other that makes us kind of shut down and think that we'd rather not go down this road.
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's definitely true, and it's a kind of conditioning. It's like certainly in my childhood, for example, there was a kind of undercurrent from certain people of what is a popular saying here, that it's a dog eat dog world. Like, don't help anybody else because they're not going to help you, and you're on your own, and you can't count on anybody, and it doesn't matter who you hurt on your way up. What's important is that you go up, and it's such a sad kind of conditioning. And I was really struck even before the pandemic how so many countries were talking about an epidemic of loneliness and the ways we are suffering from that. And even as I would read like descriptions of the role of social relationship in clinical settings and the healing potential, I always thought, well, it can't be just numbers. It can't be like, I only have 2 friends, I need 7. Like it's some inner sense of belonging, of being whole, of being part of a greater like family of life. And that we can cultivate even if we don't have like a very extroverted social calendar, and even now, as people are often isolated and so on.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of how a lot of this, I think a lot of our orientation on this topic comes about in early life through kind of attachment and attachment wounds. And I think the inner critic and self-criticism is something that, it makes sense that it evolved. It makes sense that it's a good coping mechanism when you're a kid to monitor yourself and think, well, I don't want to do anything wrong because I don't want to lose these important attachments. But then do you think that that's a major barrier to opening up to love in adult life, is the carryover of the inner critic?
I think that it could be seen as that because I think there's a lot of kinds of conditioning like that have us not want to maybe reveal any vulnerabilities to anybody else, and therefore, how authentic is our communication? If we are in some place of not wanting to say, I was hoping we could get closer. That's a hard thing to say, You don't want to say that in every context, as you kind of referred to earlier. But if you want to know the truth of your experience, and if you want to express the truth of your experience, that's a lot closer than this is all your fault and you're a cold, unfeeling person and you never pay attention to anybody else, But how willing are we to even acknowledge to ourselves, oh, that was really born out of that resentment of somebody else's action or whatever, that was born out of my frustration of wanting and longing for something deeper that wasn't coming. So what helps us be honest about our vulnerability? What helps us forgive ourselves when we've made a mistake, which is many times a day usually? That was almost like lesson 101 in meditation. Like, you have an object of awareness, let's say it's the feeling of the breath or phrases of loving kindness. You rest your attention on that object, and when your attention wanders, you bring it back. And I first heard that in my first retreat, as you did, and I thought, that's so stupid. Like, I came all the way to India to learn how to meditate. Where's the magical, esoteric, fantastic technique that's going to change my whole life? And then I thought, well, how hard can this be? Like, what'll it be, like 800 breaths, 900 breaths before my mind wanders? And to my astonishment, it was like 1 breath, and I'd be gone, and I'd be way gone. And it took a long time for me to understand that the critical moment was actually the one that came next after having been lost. being able to let go, being able to start over. And so we sometimes say that meditation is, first of all, it's a practice of resilience, because we're always starting over. And it's about renewal. It's about the return more than anything. And that, as dismissive as I was when I first heard it, I think is actually the most valuable thing I've ever learned in meditation, because every day we have to do that. We make a mistake and we have to start over, or we've fallen down and we have to pick ourselves up or let someone else help us up. We start over. Or we need to do a course correction. We're set on a certain aspiration or action, and new information comes in and it's like, whoa, every day, many times a day. And that is really not helped if you have, it's not even a strong inner critic, but if you have the voice of an inner critic that you utterly believe and that dominates, because then it's not easy to start over. You have to spend 4 hours, blaming yourself first. And so it's tiring.